Halloween night, in the quiet village of Dark Hollow, a centuries-old secret waits in the shadows, a forbidden mansion deep within Blackthorn woods, a legend of a powerful witch who returns just once a year. Most people avoid it, except for one boy, Thomas. He's about to uncover the truth, but what he finds will change him forever. In this haunted forest, the lines between magic and danger blur. Are you brave enough to enter? It was Halloween night in the village of Dark Hollow, where ancient traditions whispered through the chilly autumn air. The village was a small, quiet place with cobblestone streets and cottages that had stood for centuries. But on this night, the streets were alive with the flickering glow of jack-o'-lanterns, the laughter of children in costumes, and the soft, distant hum of the wind blowing through the old Blackthorn woods. Everyone in Dark Hollow knew the stories of Blackthorn woods. They spoke of the ancient, twisted trees that were said to move on their own, of the animals that never ventured too far into the shadows, and most famously, of the old mansion that lay hidden deep within, long abandoned and overgrown with vines. The house had once belonged to a powerful witch, so the legend said, and though it had been decades since anyone claimed to see her, the villagers still warned their children never to go near it. On Halloween, the witch was said to return just for one night, to walk the halls of her decaying home and cast her spells. Thomas, a boy of 12, had heard the stories many times. His friends told them around campfires or while trick-or-treating, trying to scare one another, but Thomas never felt afraid. He didn't believe in witches or magic. He was a curious boy, full of wonder about the world, but he thought the tales of Dark Hollow's haunted woods were nothing more than old superstitions. This Halloween, however, something felt different. As Thomas wandered the village in his skeleton costume, collecting candy with his friends, he found himself glancing more and more toward the dark outline of the forest at the edge of town. The trees seemed to sway in the moonlight, beckoning him. His friends dared each other to go near the woods to see who could get closest without turning back, but none of them had the courage to step beyond the safety of the village, except Thomas. "Are you really going to do it?" asked Liam, his closest friend, as they stood at the edge of the village square. Liam's eyes were wide with a mix of admiration and fear. "You're not scared of the witch?" "There's no witch," Thomas replied with a confident shrug. "It's just a story. I'll go to the mansion and come back, and then we'll know it's all fake." Liam hesitated. "What if the stories are true?" Thomas grinned. "Then I guess I'll be the first person to meet a real witch." The group of boys exchanged nervous glances, but no one could talk Thomas out of his decision. They followed him to the edge of the woods, their flashlights casting small pools of light on the gnarled roots and fallen leaves. Thomas felt his heart quicken as he stepped over the boundary between the village and the forest, but he refused to show fear. The deeper he went into the woods, the quieter it became. The laughter and chatter of the village faded behind him, replaced by the eerie stillness of the forest. The trees seemed to close in around him, their twisted branches reaching overhead like skeletal fingers blocking out the moonlight. A cool mist clung to the ground, swirling around his ankles as he moved. Thomas wasn't sure how long he had been walking when he finally saw it, the old mansion. It rose up from the forest floor like a forgotten relic, its stone walls cracked and crumbling, vines crawling up its sides like serpents. The windows were dark and empty, but they gave the feeling of being watched, as though something inside the house had noticed his approach. For a moment, Thomas considered turning back. There was something unnerving about the place, something that made his skin prickle with unease. But he had come this far. He wasn't about to turn around now. He pushed open the rusted iron gate, which groaned loudly as it swung inward. The path leading to the front door was overgrown with weeds and ivy, and the air smelled faintly of damp earth and rotting leaves. When he reached the large oak door, he hesitated, his hand hovering over the weathered wood. It was now or never. With a deep breath, Thomas knocked. The sound echoed through the house like a drumbeat, and for a long moment there was nothing but silence. Thomas's heart pounded in his chest. Just as he was about to knock again, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a dark candlelit hall beyond. The faint scent of herbs and something sweeter, like spices, wafted out to greet him. He stepped inside, his shoes clicking on the worn stone floor. The air in the house was thick and cool, but not unpleasant. It felt almost as if the house had been waiting for him. His flashlight flickered in his hand, but the dim light from the candles lining the hall was enough to guide him. "Hello?" he called out, his voice echoing through the vast empty space. At first there was no response. Then from the shadows at the far end of the hall, a voice spoke. "You're late." Thomas froze. The voice was smooth and feminine, but it held a strange power, as though it could command the very walls of the house. Slowly a figure stepped out of the darkness, She was tall, draped in a long flowing robe that seemed to shimmer like the night sky. Her silver hair cascaded down her back in waves, and her eyes, glowing like hot embers, were fixed on him with an intensity that made him shiver. "You're braver than most," she said, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Few have the courage to seek me out." "Are you?" Thomas hesitated, his heart pounding. "Are you the witch of Blackthorn Woods?" The woman laughed softly, though there was a sharpness to it. "Witch? Is that what they call me now?" She tilted her head, studying him with those burning eyes. "I suppose I've been called worse. Yes, I am she, the last of my kind." Thomas swallowed hard. He hadn't expected her to be so human. In the stories, the witch was a twisted, monstrous figure, bent on trickery and evil, but this woman, though undeniably strange and powerful, seemed lonely, as though she had been waiting for something or someone. "Why did you come here, child?" the witch asked, stepping closer. "Do you seek magic, power, or were you simply curious?" Thomas wasn't sure how to answer. "I just wanted to see if the stories were true." The witch's smile faded slightly, and she nodded as if she understood. "Ah, curiosity. It is a dangerous thing, you know. It leads people to places they should not go, to knowledge they should not possess." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small glass vial. Inside, a single drop of shimmering liquid glowed softly in the candlelight. "You seek the truth, then?" she asked, holding the vial out to him. "This is the last of my magic. One drop is all it takes to see the world as I do. But be warned, once you know the truth, there is no going back." Thomas stared at the vial, his heart racing. He had come this far. Could he really turn back now? "What happens if I take it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The witch's eyes flickered with something like sorrow. "You will see the world in a way you never have before. You will understand things that others cannot, but it will change you. Magic always comes with a price." Thomas hesitated, but then, with trembling hands, he took the vial from her. The liquid inside shimmered, calling to him like a forgotten dream. Slowly, he uncorked it and let the single drop fall onto his tongue. The world around him shifted. Suddenly, everything was alive. He could feel the pulse of the earth beneath his feet, hear the whispers of the wind as it danced through the trees, and see the invisible threads that connected all living things. The mansion around him, once old and decaying, now seemed vibrant, full of ancient life and hidden secrets. But along with the magic came a deep, overwhelming sadness. Thomas could feel the weight of the witch's centuries-old existence, the isolation, the loss, the burden of knowledge that she had carried for so long. He understood now why the villagers had feared her, not because she was evil, but because she was different. She saw the world in ways they couldn't comprehend. The witch watched him carefully, her expression unreadable. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly. Thomas nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "It's beautiful, but it's also so lonely." The witch sighed, and for a moment she looked as old as the forest itself. "Yes, child, that is the truth of magic. It gives, but it also takes, and once you have it, it is difficult to ever be the same." He handed the empty vial back to her, feeling a strange mixture of awe and sorrow. "Thank you," he whispered, unsure of what else to say. The witch smiled sadly. "Go now, Thomas. Return to your village and remember what you have learned. But know this, magic is not just in vials or spells. It is in every choice we make, every act of kindness, every moment of wonder. The greatest magic of all is simply believing in the impossible." With that, the witch turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Thomas standing alone in the candlelit hall. He felt different now, wiser perhaps, but also heavier, as though he carried with him a piece of the witch's ancient burden. When he finally returned to the village, the streets were quiet, and the lights in the windows had dimmed. His friends were waiting for him at the edge of the woods, their faces full of worry and relief. "Well?" Liam asked nervously. "Did you see the witch?" Thomas hesitated, then smiled. "No," he said quietly. "There's no witch, just an old story." But as he walked away, he couldn't help but glance back at the dark outline of Blackthorn Woods, wondering if the witch was watching him, waiting for the next curious soul to come seeking the truth. But remember, magic is everywhere, hidden in the choices we make and the mysteries we dare to explore. The question is, would you take the risk to find it? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this Halloween tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because who knows what other stories are waiting to be uncovered.